All right, let's just dive right into this. Picture this. Imagine a country where if you have absolutely zero formal schooling, your chances of being unemployed sit at a very manageable 3%. But if you spend years studying, cramming for exams, and finally earning a university degree, your chances of being unemployed absolutely skyrocket to a whopping 29%. It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? But according to recent data from the International Labor Organization, this is the jarring paradox currently facing India. Somehow, more education is correlating with less employment.
Welcome to today's Explainer. I am super excited to guide you through this as we unpack the incredibly complex, multi-layered reality of the Indian education system. It's a system that gets heavily criticized as a trap of rote learning, but at the exact same time, it's praised for producing some of the most brilliant minds on the global stage. Is it a trap or is it a triumph? We're going to dig into the data, the history, and the psychology to figure out what's really going on.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the graduate unemployment paradox, explore the system's historical roots, look at the societal ecosystem of pressure, unpack the rote learning machine, find the silver lining, and finally, outline a blueprint for a real revolution. Let's get into it. Starting off with Section 1, the graduate unemployment paradox. Basically, a massive systemic mismatch.
Behind all these huge data points are actual, real people. Take the composite realities of students mentioned in our sources. You've got Arjun Mehta from Pune, who spent 4 years pulling all-nighters coding, taking out student loans, only to sit jobless at home a year after graduation. Or look at Mohit Kumar, who works as a railway porter carrying heavy luggage, despite literally holding a Bachelor of Technology degree. They did everything they were supposed to do. So where exactly is the glitch?
Well, the India Skills Report drops a massive clue here. It turns out only about 55% of graduates are actually employable. That means nearly half, literally half, of the young people walking out of universities with a piece of paper in hand are missing the practical skills, the critical thinking, or the specific industry knowledge that modern companies actually want. The paper degree is there, sure, but the real-world readiness? It's completely missing.
Which brings us to Section 2, Roots of the System. How exactly did we get here?
To really understand this, we have to look back, way back. Before 1835, India relied on the ancient Gurukul system. But then 1835 hits. Under colonial rule, a British politician named Thomas Babington Macaulay introduces a policy that totally flips Indian education on its head. He formally shifted the focus toward English medium instruction and Western-style syllabuses. Fast forward to post-independence, and rapid industrialization just kicks this into overdrive, creating this absolute obsession with standardized degrees as your one and only ticket to middle-class stability.
The contrast here is literally night and day. The traditional Gurukul approach, it was all about holistic life skills, curiosity, and character building. The student and teacher actually lived together, focusing on overall human development. On the flip side, Macaulay's 1835 British system had a strictly utilitarian goal. His explicitly stated aim was to create a class of people who are Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, opinions, and intellect. Essentially, they were manufacturing an obedient working class of clerks for colonial admin work, definitely not trying to foster independent thinkers or innovators.
Moving right along to Section 3, the ecosystem of pressure. We're talking society, media, and parents.
So why on earth do 90% of Indian students seem to chase just 4 career options? Engineer, doctor, MBA, or a government job? Well, it largely boils down to something called conformity bias. It's an evolutionary trait, right? We do what the tribe is doing to stay safe. But today, this morphs into extreme peer and parental pressure. If your cousin goes to a coaching center, guess what? You go to a coaching center. Society, movies, and media just constantly glorify this tiny handful of professions, leaving young people totally blind to really cool, unconventional careers like paleontology, graphic design, or environmental science.
And this conformity gets compounded by the ambiguity effect. As our sources explain, parents often steer their kids away from new or unconventional careers because human beings naturally prefer familiar risks over unknown paths. A parent might know exactly what an engineering degree looks like, even if they know the job market is totally saturated. But a career in video editing, that has unknown probabilities. So just trying to keep their kids safe, parents use their authority to push them into these safe lanes, but inadvertently, they end up crushing the kids' self-esteem and decision-making abilities.
And the result of everyone cramming into that safe lane? It is genuinely terrifying. Over an 8-year period, 220 million people applied for central government jobs. 220 million. To put that in perspective, that is nearly the entire population of Brazil competing for just 722,000 open roles. That is a success ratio of 1 in 300. Millions of young people are running this grueling race where 299 out of 300 are going to cross the finish line with absolutely nothing to show for it. It just consumes the prime years of their youth.
All right, Section 4, the rote learning machine, where exams completely overshadow excellence.
The sources bring up this brilliant point from the famous education expert Sir Ken Robinson. He noted that we have built systems where making a mistake is basically the worst thing you can possibly do. In a lot of schools, if you don't conform, if you ask too many questions or you mess up, you get penalized. The whole system demands strict obedience to authority, first from parents at home and then from teachers. The focus is entirely on teaching to the test. Students aren't learning how biology actually connects to saving ecosystems. They are literally just learning how to memorize a textbook so they can hit a 95% on a board exam. And you guys, the human cost of this is devastating. A reported 81.6% of adolescents in India experience severe exam anxiety. Think about that. The constant pressure to be perfect, combined with this intense terror of failing highly competitive exams like the JEE or NEET, it just takes a massive toll on their mental health. We are effectively educating people right out of their creative capacities and replacing all that creativity with chronic stress.
But hey, let's pivot to Section 5, the silver lining, global success and resilience. Because impartially, we have to acknowledge that, despite its massive flaws, this system produces world-class talent. Surviving this incredibly rigid, highly competitive environment builds a very unique type of resilience. Look at this. India awarded an astounding 25 million science and engineering degrees in 2020 alone. This intense mathematical and scientific foundation is the exact engine powering the brilliant minds at ISRO, driving unbelievable feats like the Chandrayaan-3 lunar mission. It's the exact reason you see Indian graduates absolutely crushing it in leadership roles at NASA and all across Silicon Valley. The crucible is harsh, no doubt, but for those who make it through, their analytical foundations are recognized globally. And thankfully, the government knows this needs fixing and is actively trying to address the foundational flaws. The National Education Policy of 2020 is a massive, structural reform aimed directly at these issues. By bringing in concept-based learning, coding starting in the 6th grade, and flexible entry and exit options for higher ed, the policy is actively trying to shift the focus away from rote memorization and back to genuine skill building. With digital platforms now pushing education deep into rural areas, the structural gears are slowly but surely starting to turn in the right direction.
Which leads us to our final part, Section 6, Blueprint for a Revolution, Fixing the Ecosystem.
So, how do we actually prepare students not just for a job, but for life? Innovators in the higher education space, like the leaders at Rishi University mentioned in our sources, suggest a three-pillared approach to holistic education. Step 1 is professional success, teaching actual, usable industry skills, not just theory. Step 2 is personal satisfaction, building the physical and mental fitness so students can actually handle life stresses. And Step 3 is public impact, instilling a real sense of duty to go out and solve actual societal problems.
Think about what this looks like in practice. Instead of a standard curriculum where you just memorize formulas, imagine teaching an entrepreneurial mindset. For example, some of these innovative programs actually give incoming students a 10,000 rupee trading balance right out of the gate. Why? Not to turn them into gamblers, but to make them comfortable with financial risk and the realities of money. Or having students do a 100-kilometer walk over 2 days. When a student pushes past their physical limits and realizes their mind can overcome a massive hurdle, that builds a level of emotional resilience that a standardized test is just never going to measure.
To make this a reality everywhere, we need collective shifts. Policymakers have to deregulate institutions to allow for more localized, innovative teaching methods rather than just forcing a one-size-fits-all metric. As individuals, we've got to bypass algorithm echo chambers and consume diverse media to actually learn about unconventional careers. Parents need to shift from an authoritative dictatorial style to a supportive one that genuinely fosters self-esteem. And overall, we just have to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset where students take ownership of their paths early on, completely comfortable with risk and failure.
We've covered the history, the staggering odds, the heavy mental toll, and the brilliant potential just waiting to be fully unlocked. But the ultimate takeaway from all this source material comes down to a massive fundamental shift in perspective. The next time you look at a classroom, a textbook, or a student studying late into the night, you have to ask yourself this. Are we preparing for exams, or are we preparing for life? It's a question that literally could change the future of a nation. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.